Hello, and welcome to episode 50 of Expertise is Overrated, the podcast that takes the time to answer the questions you didn't know you didn't want the answers to. I'm Vib.
And I'm Sean, and neither of us has any clue what we're talking about. Which I think is specifically true for today. I have no idea what I'm talking about because apparently we reached episode 50.
Episode 50, and as of the day that we're recording, we passed 2,500 downloads as well.
Which is an average of 50 per episode. Well, less than.
Because there's only more than, because we have
more than
fewer than 50 episodes.
Yeah, that's insane. That's completely insane.
I know. Who knew that when we started this, I'd actually still be talking to you after 2 episodes, let alone.
I mean, I was really hoping that you wouldn't. I thought this was a really clever way to break that cycle of violence, but never mind.
That was the whole point, right? Is to get rid of each other from our lives. And yet here we are. Having just discussed me coming to your house to actually record things every every quarter?
once a quarter, and just have one day of absolute hell.
Yeah. Should your wife be listening, I'm sorry in advance.
It's fine. You'll be on. Actually, what it is you'll be on childcare duty, and my wife and I will go out for dinner. It'd be amazing.
Ah, fuck! That would have actually been a really good ploy, but now I know.
No, I've told you. I've ruined it.
Okay, so I'm never coming.
Also, I'm not 100% sure that I actually trust you to look after a child.
I mean, you really shouldn't.
Yeah, it's not a damning indictment of you or anything. It's just having done it for the last 17 months, it's actually really difficult if you don't know what you're doing.
Well, exactly. And I've spent maybe a combined total of an hour with my nephew, and that's about it. So
yeah,
what could go wrong, right?
Right, I mean,
anyway, moving on.
Charging past that. We're still waiting. A few episodes ago, we discussed a large number of tinfoil hats that could be worn, but I don't think that episode's actually released yet, so we've had absolutely no feedback on all of the stupid shit that we said around who the hero of the Lord of the Rings is. Which is quite disappointing, because I'm looking forward to being proven right for once.
Wait, no, that is out, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, Hero of the Lord of the Rings came out. That came out 2 weeks ago, mate.
Sorry, Hero of the Lord of the Rings has come out 2 weeks ago, but the follow-up episode where we ask people about the tinfoil hasn't come out yet, has it?
No, that was in Do TTRPGs Need D&D.
Oh, so
and actually, I did
launched.
have a suggestion as to what who gets to get tinfoil. Yeah, which is me, because I just deserve it, apparently. There was no other reason given than just...
Yes, Justine.
Yeah, of course you know who it was as well.
Absolutely, yes, Justine.
So please, people, give us more feedback on tinfoil and make sure that it stays on Sean's head, because that's where it belongs.
My head gets cold without its shiny hat.
Exactly. But anyway, I think we just need to take a little bit of time to thank all the listeners, even though they aren't giving us any tinfoil suggestions. We've made it to 50 episodes, and I don't think we would have been doing this if we generally had no downloads.
No, we wouldn't. We set ourselves a few targets as we were going, and we smashed through all of them in terms of regular listeners, in terms of growth, all of that. So, yeah, I just echo what Vibs said. It's slightly shocking that an average of more than 50 people listen to this drivel on a fortnightly basis, but to whoever you are out there, one, seek help, but two, thank you ever so much.
Yeah, definitely go and seek help. But no, thank you very much for listening, of course. This is not the end of the episode.
No.
But hopefully we can, well, what's the next target? Let's just go big and say 10,000 downloads.
That's insane.
Let's make it big, Sean. I'm just saying, let's make it big.
That's another 4 years of doing this.
No, the point is that this is now exponential, right? We're in the log phase. This is where we really, go MCU on this.
That would be good.
The first 50 were our Iron Man. Now, as long as we avoid making a Thor 2...
Yeah, we've got to dodge that quite hard.
Well, actually, they made Thor 2 and they made billions, so...
I think we've got to get off at Avengers Assemble. I think that's the trick. It's identify that moment and then jump ship.
Maybe.
But I only say that because I've been rewatching all of the Marvel films, and I think it's broken me. But
Yeah,
that's,
well,
I think, a topic for another episode.
No, it's not. Let's unpack that. You said you've watched all of them. I would question
I have not.
that.
No, I have not. I have not
Okay.
yet finished watching all of them.
I was going to say, because last I heard you were on Black Panther? Which was only like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that's true. I thought I was nearly finished when I reached Black Panther, and then I realised I was actually halfway through, and that was the realisation that broke me.
Well, yeah, because the problem is now you have all of the shit ahead of you.
I've got a lot to wade through after that.
But yeah, that we will unpack some other day as to why you have this pathological need to hurt yourself.
I don't know. Some of it's been very good. Some of it has been very good.
I do like Marvel.
I've been surprised in how much I enjoyed going back to some films. I think I messaged you while I was watching Homecoming to basically say this is the best Marvel film. Actually, it was unbelievably good.
It's not even a Marvel film,
and it's not even a Marvel film. And then I watched Ragnarok and went, oh no, this is the best Marvel film.
Good. Ragnarok is so good.
But
anyway,
no,
yeah,
there's some dross in there as well. But
sizzle for a repeat of our, best MCU films coming up.
Rerun the tier list, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today we've set ourselves a properly high concept and also stupid topic.
Yeah, but before we get onto that, I'm gonna just come straight in with an excuse as to why I may not do so well in the upcoming debate. Although I don't know where everyone else stands on this, so it'd be interesting.
I'm slightly frustrated that you're coming in with an excuse because I'm fairly sure this is your topic.
Yeah, but I think it's a valid excuse. It's mostly to apologise if I sound weird or out of breath or cough in the middle of this, because Sean is editing, so he almost certainly won't catch any of them.
Nope.
I'm just recovering from COVID, so there's that. But it's all good. We put this off how many days? Like 3 days, 4 days?
What is it now? Thursday, 4 days. Yeah.
Yeah, we're supposed to record on Monday and we're recording Thursday instead. So yeah, it's been fun.
Depends how you can. Yeah, I hope you're feeling better.
I'm sure you do.
No, I genuinely do.
Yeah, no, I feel much better. The last 2 days were a bit shit. But
that's good. You've been really whiny, so the fact that you're feeling better is good.
And I was genuinely convinced I was one of those like super immune individuals. I was so pleased. I was lording it over everyone. And then, yeah.
I mean, you made it a long time.
I did. The slightly annoying thing was that sort of the day before I tested myself, I went to a comedy gig.
Yeah.
Which I feel is not the best forum to potentially be carrying a respiratory disease.
No, but I really hope that you were sitting at the back and your sort of particulates were hitting everyone in the...
No, I was actually in the front row, so I was only coughing on the actual performers.
That's only my good friend that you...
Yeah, who cares about them, right? I did immediately tell him the day after. I hope he's feeling fine. I
think he's travelling soon. That could be really bad. Super spreader.
Yeah. Let's not go there. Anyway, shall we move on?
Probably quickly before some border force gets in touch. What are we talking about today, then? You've got your excuses in, but why don't you set the scene for us in what you wanted to talk about?
So, I mean, yeah, this is something that came to me randomly, and it's one of those things that I just popped as a random idea in our just endless chat. But it's because you at one point had filmed a brief, and as of now, a very, very unreleased little intro video to Factorio, the video game.
Yep.
And you haven't released it yet, but off the back of that, we sort of started streaming on Twitch, actually, where I play Factorio, having never played the game before, and you sort of teach me / just try not to yell at me for being an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, I guess. The way that I see it is I'm on hand to answer questions that you have as you play while I commentate on the terrible things that you're doing. But I think the genesis of the video was the lack of, as I saw it, beginner-friendly tutorials on YouTube for Factorio. Now, I have only recorded the first episode because it turns out that I just have literally no spare time So I haven't been able to record anymore, and I actually think I've lost the recording, so I'd need to start again. But
classic. Well, it's not the recording as much as it is the editing of that is really time consuming. So
that's true.
You are forgiven, of course. So the streaming is actually much easier, right? Because it's all live, and so in an hour and a bit, we can just get something done, and people seem to actually really enjoy it.
We've had some good interactions with people, but I suppose, yeah, it sort of started a conversation topic, didn't it?
Well, yeah, because I mean, it just didn't go. I don't know what the word is, like smoothly, I guess. Like it wasn't sort of an easy game to get to grips with, and I think it really just highlights, in my mind, a steep learning curve that we see in a lot of video games now. Now, Factorio obviously has a built-in tutorial that I didn't play very perfectly.
Which I feel like that's a necessary statement. You're refusing to play that on principle, which makes for good Twitch content.
Yeah.
But
the fact that it's got one, I think. Well, so the thing that sort of popped into my head, that dawned on me at the time, was I think video games are just getting too complex. And I think you actually came up with the title for this episode, which I'm hoping we actually went with. But you said it is the overcomplexity and subsequent tutorialisation of modern video games.
I mean, that's got my grandiloquence written all over it, really, doesn't it?
It really does.
But I think that is almost...
I think you mean magniloquence, but yes.
No, grandiloquent. I meant what I said.
No. I disagree. I just wanted to say magniloquent again.
Not this nonsense again. I think that's almost... We can almost turn that round into a problem question, though, can't we? So, are modern video games so over complex that they necessitate a ridiculous level of tutorialization in order to make them playable to most gamers?
Exactly, and I think that's the thing we should discuss first and foremost. Yeah. So, I mean, one example, Factorio. Quite clearly, if you do not play the tutorial, you will struggle. Without you there, I would have achieved very, very little, I think.
You have no clue what's going on, do you? Like, you're getting there, but we've played the game for about 3.5 hours now.
Something like that, yeah.
And you have consumed no YouTube or Twitch Factorio content other than the 30-minute video that I made, which I don't think you watched all of.
Well, you only sent me 5 minutes of it, so...
I only sent you a 5-minute clip, so that's it. And you have not played any of the 5 Factorio tutorials.
No. So tell me about them. Are they 5... Like, are we talking quite long tutorials? Or?
They are long. I think that's almost the next point, right? It would take you, I venture, 3 to 5 hours to play all of them, potentially. Maybe not quite
3 to
that
5
much.
hours, right, okay, that is...
Maybe not quite that much. 2 to 3 hours is probably right to play all 5 Factorio tutorials.
And honestly, that's kind of nuts, isn't it? Like, people don't have infinite amount of time anymore.
I think that's right. I think that's part of the problem. So Factorio is potentially a slightly bad example, though, although it's the one that set this topic running, because it is such a monumentally complicated game. And it's also first in class and part of a very small class. So yes. I wonder whether...
Which admittedly also applies to the other example that I was thinking of, which is Kerbal Space Program 1, and 2 is getting a whole tutorial campaign as well, so... But that's equally niche, and obviously it's a genuine physics simulator. So
I was going to say, KSP is literally teaching you rocket science.
Yeah.
But I guess the point is, Kerbal Space Program doesn't actually teach you rocket science. It doesn't teach you anything at all.
No, it just teaches you how to play the game.
Well, but it doesn't. It goes, here's a load of buttons, push buttons and see what happens.
Oh yeah, KSP 1 certainly.
KSP 1. I think 2's got a tutorial.
I think in 2 they realised, wow, we really made this too hard.
Yeah.
So I guess we rest our collective cases here that video games are too hard.
That's it.
Job done.
Kerbal Space Program and Factorio, two of the most complicated games that you can play. That's it. That's our case. No, I don't think that's right. Think about so Total War Warhammer 3.
Yeah.
Right. The tutorial campaign in that game is like 7 or 8 hours long. No, part of that is because it's a narrative campaign, not just a tutorial. But I don't have 8 hours to learn to play a video game. That's in some cases that's, 8 gaming sessions.
Yeah. And the thing with that one is it goes at a glacial pace, or I should say, it goes at well, I guess we would consider a glacial pace because we actually are quite familiar with Total War games.
Yeah.
But clearly the developers thought, well, we need to make it this slow so new people can actually get to grips with the mechanics in this. Yeah, and it makes you remember that actually you get so used to a lot of games and you forget how difficult they actually are to just play properly.
I think that's sort of comes back to the overcomplexity point, doesn't it? I mean, you look at video games today, there are so many moving parts. There are so many things to keep track of. It's absolutely ridiculous. And even what looks like a comparatively simple game. So I've recently got my hands on a PlayStation 5 and I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima. Which is fundamentally just like an action RPG in the mold of all action RPGs that have been made since Assassin's Creed 1, probably, if not before. And the tutorial for that is like 2.5 hours long. Just let me play the damn game.
The thing is that they start calling them prologues, right?
That's exactly right. And they're tightly knit into the overall gameplay. So they introduce gameplay concepts as part of the tutorial, which is fine, except it's also really, really annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. Actually, the only Ghost of Tsushima I played was the multiplayer bit that they added sometime after because it was free at one point. And even the tutorial in that is really long, just going through all the classes, even though there's only like 4 classes. But it makes you do every single one. It's just tedious.
It's really, really strange. I don't know when things changed. So this is almost like our very first high concept episode 10, when we spoke about early access, but it never used to be this bad.
See,
did it?
Before we recorded this, I thought that too. But then I thought back to something like Age of Empires 2, right? Quite an old game, but obviously not as old as it could be.
Yeah,
and that has a tutorial campaign in it, right? William Wallace, yes. What a great campaign it is. So the concept of a tutorial campaign is not necessarily alien.
No.
But I feel that one doesn't take anywhere near as long.
It doesn't take anywhere near as long, and it also is very clear. It doesn't gate anything, so you can just open up Age of Empires 2 and play a skirmish game.
That's very true.
And learn to play that way. So the tutorial's there if you need it, but also it sort of goes, right, play through one. It tells you what each of the tutorial levels are teaching you. So level 1 is left click to select, right click to move, basically. So if you know how to play an RTS, it tells you don't need to play that. Yes. Same with, and I'm fairly sure you can just select whichever of the tutorials you want. But also it tells you, like, if you complete tutorials 1 to 4, you understand the game. That's it. You get the game.
And then you just finish off the campaign ultimately.
Yeah, 5 and 6 introduce high concepts that you've probably already worked out, but also they finish the story.
Yeah, and I think that's a good level of tutorial. You don't have to play it. B, it does the job in about the minimum amount of time you could possibly make it take. And again, coming back to your point about types of games, I guess, I mean, RTS is arguably one kind of genre of game that does require some element of tutorialization because they're inherently complex games, right? Strategy implies it.
They're inherently complex, yeah. And also you've got to understand, so something like Age of Empires or StarCraft, you've got to understand the balance of the various resources. No, the tutorial can't possibly teach you that because the balance meta isn't going to be set until people start playing it in multiplayer. But you've got to at least grasp the fundamentals of, okay, I need wood to build early buildings, I need stone to build late buildings, I need food and gold to build units, and sometimes I need wood to build units. So based on what I'm currently doing, I vaguely understand how I need to allocate my villages. The game's sort of got to teach you that a little bit. I think another game,
that's fine.
A sort of maybe slightly later game that's very similar is Warcraft 3, where the prologue is the tutorial, but it's quick. It's like 2 missions, and if you know what you're doing, you can play through it in half an hour. I did it recently. I was playing Warcraft 3. I say recently, it was probably about 18 months ago now. I played through the tutorial in genuinely 20 minutes, half an hour, just because it didn't need, I was already doing what it was teaching me to do. So I got the story, but it didn't slow down my gameplay. And that's the thing that I've been finding really, really frustrating with Ghost of Tsushima, is the tutorialization is slowing down my ability to access the gameplay.
Yeah.
And that's really irritating.
Yeah, and I sort of get that, but that's kind of interesting to hear, because at first I thought, well, RPGs are probably going to be somewhat action RPGs, I guess, very specifically, are going to be the odd ones out. The most recent new one that I played, or even an old one that I played, so I played a lot of Mass Effect and also Hogwarts Legacy recently, and they both have that sort of, here's the opening sort of cinematics and story bits, and the first time you control your character, it's, this is how you move, this is how you shoot, etc.
Yeah.
But it kind of happens very naturally and also quite quickly. You don't feel like you're being held back from actually playing the game because it's trying to teach you. It's all very naturally part of it.
That is absolutely my single biggest issue with the tutorialization of Ghost of Tsushima, and I think it's in other games, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. The fact that I know a mechanic has to exist in this game. So Ghost of Tsushima is the assassinate mechanic.
Yeah.
I know that mechanic has to exist in the game because of the nature of the game. You have a hide mechanic, which you've already shown me, and I can see that my character is carrying a dagger, but I can't assassinate someone until I do the tutorial mission that is on the map that I have to go to in order to get the assassinate skill, which it's not a big thing. But likewise, I know that archery is in the game, but I can't do archery until I go and do the archery tutorial. And I feel like almost, in some ways, Ghost of Tsushima is good because there are vague story reasons why you can't do those things. But they feel constructed story reasons to enforce the tutorialization.
See, but that's interesting, right? Because that's tutorialization, but it's not because of complexity. Right, as in, if you were to be thrown in mid-game into Tsushima, I think you could quite quickly figure out, yes, I can hide, therefore I can assassinate, yes, I can use a bow because I've got one in my inventory, and you can kind of figure out the buttons
exactly
that go along with that. That's not too difficult. And this is maybe consoles, that there's a limited number of buttons ultimately, so there's only so complex things can get.
I think that's right. I mean, one of the first thing that I did in Ghost of Tsushima was work out, is square attack or is R1 attack? Oh, it's square. Okay.
Yeah. By the way, congrats on getting a PS5.
Thanks.
You've made it.
It's good fun. I've joined the modern era. So I don't know.
So that just feels like tutorialization
for
even wronger reasons. In my mind,
it's not just the complexity, but I also sort of don't need a samurai RPG to have an assassinate mechanic. I understand why it's there because it's sort of story-ish.
No, but that's just a separate issue that everything needs it. I mean, even Hogwarts Legacy, where your 5th year student effectively has that.
That's amazing.
Like, you use just a disillusionment charm, and then you Petrificus Totalis people from behind. Like,
it's just absolutely shanking teachers. That's amazing.
You just conjure up a big knife and just go nuts. No,
but this is my point, right?
They're all carbon copies. That's a different issue. RPGs.
It is and it isn't. They're carbon copies, but the carbon copying means that all of these games are more complex than they need to be. Or
yes, I guess I do agree with you to an extent. Like
that's a slightly more definitive statement than I think even I believe. But there's something there about. I understand why there is an assassinate mechanic in Hogwarts Legacy. Because not Hogwarts Legacy. I don't understand why there's one in Hogwarts Legacy. I understand why there's one in Ghost of Tsushima, because part of the story is about your character coming to terms with the fact that you can't live by an oath like the samurai oath all the time.
You see, I don't buy that. I think it is just pandering to the crowd. We just live in an era now where that game has stealth, and therefore I like all games to have stealth. Whereas other people are like, no, I just want to hit things. So every developer now for these kind of games gives you all those options, and thereby increases the complexity of any game, right? Because they have to ultimately teach you all those things again.
Yeah.
Because you could just approach Ghost of Tsushima being like, well, I'm a samurai, so I'm just going to honorably walk up to everyone and fight, which I'm sure you can do. Never knowing that there is a stealth mechanic if they don't sort of keep being like, oh, by the way, you can crouch here to be hidden.
Yeah, the problem with Ghost of Tsushima, there are definitely levels or missions where you have to do the do not be seen and raise the alarm.
I hate that so much. Like, don't give me choice and then take the choice away. What's the point?
Don't force me to play this game a way I don't want to, because I don't want to. I want to play a.
It's a role-playing game. You play it however you want.
Stand in the face of the invaders and cut them down one by one style player, and I can't, and it's really irritating.
This is why we should have played Elden Ring. I wonder how complex that is.
I was going to say Elden Ring and Dark Souls and Demon Souls and Bloodborne are almost the other side of the coin of this problem, aren't they?
They're really not very complex, right? I think they're at their heart very, very simple games that are just really difficult to play because the enemies are really difficult to kill.
But they also tell you absolutely nothing about how anything works. And I think that's I don't think it's a problem because they're all wildly successful games. It's off-putting to me. So you get things in you get loot pickups in Dark Souls, and I go, the hell does this do? And I have no frame of reference of where to even start trying to work out what something does.
Yes. And I think that's a very interesting point, because there are so many games where I feel more and more the temptation and sometimes the need to look things up is just there, right? Because you're somewhere, and maybe it's because we've all gotten lazier off the back of all of this, but it's just so you get stuck. You're like, how do I actually do this? And so you have to figure it out via internet.
I think laziness is a fair criticism, but we were all doing it when we were kids. You were asking friends at school, have you got past this bit yet?
Yeah.
How did you do it? So
the old walkthrough guides for like the Final Fantasies and stuff.
Yeah, you bought a book that told you how to play the game. Like, we've always done it. I think the difference is the information is easier to get.
The information is easy to get, but then, the Final Fantasy is maybe not a bad example, actually, because again, that's a game that's actually quite simple, right?
It's
if we sort of go from
based combat,
exactly,
it's as simple as it gets,
super simple. But then the complexity there lies in the sort of the next steps. Right? Oh, you want all the legendary weapons, do you? Well, that's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine, though, because that doesn't stop you from playing and finishing the game. It just stops you from, certain bits that, require maybe a special something. But
I think Final Fantasy, I remember for some reason, I had a guide for Final Fantasy X. I think it was I got it with a PlayStation magazine or something. And, like, some of the things you had to do to get the ultimate weapons, which are not necessary to complete the game, was completely nonsensical. There was no way you could have worked it out, I would argue.
See, I often wondered that, right? Like, who comes up with the guides? Is it just people who are really good gamers, or is it just the manufacturers or the devs being like, by the way, guys, this is how you do it?
I think a lot of the time it was the devs.
Like, they just drop some pros, like a few hints, and do this, do that.
I think
because who would have been like, I'm going to dodge his lightning 200 times just to see what happens.
Exactly. But I do think that's different, though, because that's depth while you're playing the game rather than barriers to playing the game.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Exactly.
I come back to Factorio, I think, because it's such an egregious example of this, and you have perfectly encapsulated it. You don't understand Factorio, and you've played it for 3 hours. Like, that's slightly harsh, but it's not that harsh.
I don't think it's particularly harsh. No, it's. Yeah, I sort of know. Oh, yeah, you can make stuff, you can produce stuff, and you can kind of automate things. But there's very little rhyme or reason at the moment, based on what I've encountered.
Yeah, you've sort of gone right. Clearly, there are things in my inventory that I can build. So let's find out what I need to do to build them. Okay, I built a research lab. I need power. Okay, I need power. Okay, I now have a tech tree. But you have no idea. I think I am being slightly harsh. I'm making you sound like an idiot. But you have no idea why you're doing anything beyond this is an irritating problem. I want to fix it. And I think a good introduction to the game and a good early game would explain to you why you're trying to do certain things. Why do you want to automate things? Why do you want to mine more iron than you think you need, etc.? And I just don't think Factorio is good at showing you that. And I think that is part of the problem, is because the game is so complicated that they wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah, I agree with that. But now I'm looking at my Steam library now, and I'm just wondering if maybe we did just pick one particularly egregious example.
Grand Strategy.
Yeah, maybe that's what I mean. Grand Strategy is just so complicated now.
Well, Factorio is not a grand strategy game, but you
know what I mean.
Every Paradox game is completely unplayable, essentially, until you go and find a YouTube video teaching how to play. Even the ones with good tutorials are completely unplayable.
That's true. I mean, looking at Crusader Kings 2 now.
You've played that game. That was a nightmare for you.
Yeah, no, but that's because I spawned into the worst possible character possible. I was literally in jail when I spawned.
Yeah, but you had the game gave you no clues as to what.
Oh, not at all. No, I don't even know what happened then.
And the tutorial for Crusader Kings 2 is hilarious because the game has developed and like versions have moved on from when they made the tutorial, and it is now possible to hard lock yourself in the tutorial by following the instructions.
Nice. Love that.
Really, really, really funny.
Looking at the rest of my library, I've got so many really odd games. I've just seen them do Daikatana for some reason.
That's amazing.
Dungeon Siege. Elder Scrolls, that's another RPG that just did the sort of, here's a brief intro to give you the controls. And then off you go. Kinda.
Is that Skyrim?
Yeah.
Well, Skyrim is done quite well, I think.
Well, there's a reason it's, one of the best games ever made.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are quite damning of these wildly popular games like Skyrim, like I am about Dark Souls, to be fair. and we miss that these games are popular and successful for a reason.
Yeah.
And part of that reason is their approachability. Which is why I'm curious about Hogwarts Legacy. So that is a game that should be successful by any sensible metric if you look at how many people are fans of Harry Potter.
Well, if you look at how many copies it's sold, I think it is doing quite well.
It is at the moment. How long will it be successful for, I think, is an interesting question.
Oh, easy. They were very clever when they didn't include Quidditch.
Oh, that's very, very clever.
That's an instant DLC, right?
Yeah,
it's going to get everyone back to play.
Quidditch DLC. But I mean, compare it with Sky. Is it going to have the longevity of an Oblivion or a Skyrim or a Dark Souls?
It's funny that you mentioned that. Like I was reading an article about it today, being like, oh, it's like the modern day Skyrim, or the Skyrim that we were looking for in like Hogwarts. Like, is it?
I don't think
it's hard to remember Skyrim when it first came out, obviously, because it's so long ago now. But that game is just endless replayability.
Yeah, I don't think it is possible to answer that question yet. We have to see where it is in 3-5 years' time. That's when we can start to answer questions about its longevity, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so looking through, maybe it is just the strategy side of things that I really take issue with, like Subnautica, for example. Stellaris, there's your Paradox example.
Yeah.
I played that a few times. I still don't understand any of it.
Game's unplayable.
It's just so needlessly complicated. Like, why do I need to literally have a degree to be able to play this game? Like, it's completely crazy.
Dwarf Fortress?
I don't think I've ever played Dwarf Fortress.
No, nor have I. I'm just thinking of these like cult classic games. RimWorld, Banished, all of these really, really popular cult classics that are entirely impenetrable to someone who has not spent like a week's worth of a full-time job learning to play.
Yeah.
People talk about.
So I've just seen Rocket League right in my list, and I think this is a good example to talk about my gripe with modern PC gaming to an extent. Right?
Good.
What I'm missing really in my life of PC gaming world is this pick up and play thing, right? And that's still where consoles come in big, and I'm sure that you'll learn this, right? You literally sit down, you press a button, and 2 seconds later you're actually playing a game.
It's absolutely life-changing with a baby. Like,
yeah,
I have so little time to play video games, and part of the problem is that my PC's upstairs, like tucked away, not in plain view. But I get to 8:30 at night, and I've like put the baby to bed. I've tidied the kitchen. I've done like the last few chores around the house, and I cannot be bothered to go upstairs, fiddle around with my cables to take the cables out of my laptop and put them into my PC, turn my PC on, turn my screen on, fiddle around with my screen to make that work properly because my screen is stupid, sit for 5 minutes while my PC boots up and does whatever updates it needs to do.
Yep.
And then open up my Steam library and stare at Steam for 20 minutes and then decide, like, actually, I just need to go to bed. Like,
yeah, and then more often than not, you're like, oh, let's play some Vermintide 2. Oh, yeah, that needs an update. And so you have to do that.
Exactly. That just takes too long.
And then it launches the launcher, and then you load into the game, and then you have to launch.
I've got like notifications and pop-ups. Oh, you've got daily collectibles. Blah, 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 blah.
It's just
by comparison.
Yeah.
I push the PlayStation button on my controller. It goes, would you like to keep playing Ghost of Tsushima? I go, yes, please. And I'm literally back where I turned it off last night. The whole process takes 30 seconds.
Hashtag non-spawn, for sure. But
no, I think Xboxes and Switches are the same. No, my Xbox One isn't, but my the new Xbox, I think the Series X or S or whatever it's called. It's
just getting the Switch as well. You just a couple of clicks and you're actually in a game playing a game. And the reason I mentioned Rocket League there is because that's an example of a game that you just launch it, and within a couple of clicks you are playing Rocket League, but you are not going to be playing it well. But I think that's okay, right? I don't want to necessarily sit here and argue for skill caps and levels and so on, right? I don't think games should be universally easy, But I think it should be a bit like a Rocket League where, yes, I can play and be shit, and if I'm happy with that, fine. If not, I'll play thousands of hours and become good, maybe. Or same with something like a Dark Souls. Like, they're not easy games inherently, but people like that. But I think that's fine if it is just you pick it up and you learn by doing, whereas something like... Because I feel if you just stick enough time into a Dark Souls, you'll be good, whereas...
Dark Souls also isn't that difficult.
No, but like Factorio,
I think, is a different challenge.
I could be sat there for hours and hours and still not really know what I'm doing, or get so far in that I'm just doing something very wrong, and then be like, oh,
that was the genesis of my desire to produce a series of YouTube tutorials, because I had a bit of a look on YouTube to see what sort of tutorial content was out there for Factorio, and it's all terrible, right? It's so bad. Well, no, it's not. But the tutorial content for the vast majority of large creators out there is join my Discord, where you can get access to my factory blueprints that you paste down and build. And that is the tutorial. And my tutorial is going through and putting down my blueprints and building my blueprints. And that's not... Like, you're a teacher. That's not how you teach people.
That's quite rude.
Well, part of what you do as a job is teach people, isn't it?
That's better. Teacher, come on now. Give me some respect.
That's never happened before.
But no, that's very true.
Joking aside, that's not how you teach people.
No, of course not. It's complete nonsense.
I do teaching as part of my job. It is essentially teaching. I do some teaching as part of my job. You don't teach people by just giving them the answers and showing them this is the end state. You have to teach people by letting them do it to themselves and giving them essentially pointers. It's the whole point of the Socratic method.
Yeah, that's a way to make this accessible to the folks. The people at large.
One of the long-term most successful teaching strategies is to never give an answer unless the person is completely stuck and so clearly incapable of reaching the answer that you have to help them. Instead, you ask questions that lead them to the answer.
I know, it's exactly how I teach, and I'm sure it's infuriating. But
it was how I was tutored at university, and if you're on the receiving end of it, it's the most frustrating thing in the world. But it makes you a better student.
But now that you know that I teach at that university, you should know why they teach like that.
Of course,
because they don't fucking know themselves.
No, that's not.
But because you're like,
not
you're a professor of law, you must know, and you're not telling me, so I'll go and look it up.
No, it's not true for it shouldn't be true for the law professors who are teaching on the content of their own textbooks. Well, I suppose it might be. But
exactly.
It genuinely makes you understand content better if you are taught in that way, if you are taught in such a way that you come to the understandings and the realizations yourself.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think that's very true. So there's definitely bad tutorialization.
Yes.
Well, lack thereof ultimately, because they're not actually tutorials. They're just, here, use this. go and be true. But so it does sound like we're perhaps suggesting that it is mostly linked to strategy-like games that really have this issue.
I think those are the games that have become the most complicated.
I would throw in... Again, it's a fun distinction, but I would throw in something like Rainbow Six Siege right here, because again, I've just spotted it in my library. And that's an interesting game, right? Because actually... that's not easy to play.
No, that's not true. It's very easy to play. It's a point and click first person shooter. You learn Siege by doing.
Well, but the issue, I guess, with Siege is that people think it's a first person shooter when actually it's not. It's an objective control sim. And people are there just trying to kill others when that's not the mission. But the problem with Siege, for example, the complexity there arises from the fact that they keep releasing new operators and they all have these specialist jobs, and it's really hard to learn what those are.
Well, you see, I actually think that a really good analog for Rainbow Six Siege is Magic the Gathering.
Go on.
So they're both games that have a series of rules, right? Do X, do Y, do Z. And then the operators in Siege, or the cards in Magic, break those rules in really specific ways. And the game, or a significant portion of the game, is understanding the interactions of those rule breaks. So, for example...
Yes, but I think in Magic the Gathering that is sort of...
It's more clear in Magic the Gathering,
right?
that is what the game is, yes.
Yeah, in that tutorial, it's sort of told, like, oh, you know, that counters this, and these things are supposed to counter those things, and so on. Whereas in Siege, it's not that. It's like, oh, play this person because, you know, you get to blow up a reinforced wall.
Sure.
But no one tells you that there's like hard counters to those things, and you should be very careful, and so on and so forth.
No,
like that's never explained. It's just like, here you go, here's a bunch of operators, go nuts.
But they also don't do that. So, well, they sort of do and they sort of don't. The base game of Siege doesn't have that many operators available from day one. You have like maybe 4 attackers and 4 defenders available from
presumably
day one.
It's 5 and 5, right?
It's
5v5 teams.
Must be
it?
5. Must be 5 and 5. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I don't know, but I would assume it's 5v5.
It must be 5v5. That's absolutely right. But my point is that that's not that complicated. So you've got, like, on the attacker side, you've got the hard breach, probably the soft breach, probably like a close range DPS, long range DPS, and then someone a bit weird.
Yeah, so it was when Siege first came out, not particularly complicated game.
But if you're a new player, that's still all you get. That's still all you get.
But that's the issue, right? The complexity is even worse then, because the deck is completely stacked against you. Right? You're going to go in, you're going to play Ashe, and you're going to just come up against all the counters.
But there are no real this operator completely turns off this operator. Ashe doesn't have a hard counter. She's got lots of soft counters, but she is also a soft counter.
It's what you're saying is untrue, but unfortunately I lack the knowledge to back up why.
Well be.
There are definitely hard counters. Now the issue, of course, is that A, you don't know it as a new player. B, the game is designed in such a way that you sort of just can't say, oh, they're using Bandit, and so therefore I'm going to use this person. It doesn't really work like that unless you're at the pro level, I guess, where you can make those sort of assumptions. But
you can make those sort of assumptions, but also the way matchmaking works, if you're a brand new player,
of course,
you should really only be paired against relatively new players yourself.
Yeah.
So, and maybe you'll see the odd player with a Bandit or I forget all the names of the Siege operators. I haven't played it in 2 years. A Maverick or a Blackbeard or whatever, and you go, oh wow, that Blackbeard player absolutely owned me in every round. So I'm going to unlock Blackbeard when I get enough tokens to do so, and I'm going to learn to play as Blackbeard. So I don't think that that's bad. I think that's good because it's organic learning.
This was just, I think, an example of complexity that isn't...
It's complexity that's not tutorialized.
Exactly. So, I recently started playing Battlefield 2042 on PlayStation because it was free.
Yeah.
And it's not a complicated game, right? That literally is just point and shoot. And I was getting destroyed left, right, and centre because, you know, this Battlefield, so there's like, you know, a tank just shows up behind you, then someone bombs you from a bloody plane. It's just carnage. But that's sort of the deal. That's not complicated. It's just annoying.
Skill-based learning is not the same as overcomplicated and subsequently tutorialized. I think those are important.
And so I think that's why Factorio was a great example. But I think there's so many games in that kind of realm right? Where they get announced, and nowadays, we talked about this many episodes ago. Things get announced, things go into early access, and so on and so forth. And I find myself hesitant to buy any of them until I've watched a couple of streams. A, to kind of see what it's like, and also just B, to get an understanding of how the game works. And I feel that's kind of sad in a way.
I think that's a really, really interesting point. I was just thinking about a game that you and I have both played and discussed on air. So Valheim.
Yeah.
Right? At its basics, it's a fundamentally simple survival crafting game.
It is, yeah.
But there is a little complexity around the edges that makes it much more interesting. But the game is, again, highly tutorialized.
Ooh, but is it?
To a point, the early game is tutorialized, but not
this is true. You get bloody Hugin
and Mugen. Yeah,
it's just Hugin. I think it shows up.
Is it my mistake?
Constantly pops up, being like, "You must do this. You must build that." But then when it comes to like, where the fuck's the big dragon I need to kill, then he doesn't show up.
How do I get bronze? Bit is the big one. How do I mine? The game doesn't tell you that. The game just goes,
no, it does.
Does it?
Well, yeah, because once you kill Eikthyr, it gives you the pickaxe.
Until you kill Eikthyr.
Yeah, but I feel that's a pretty natural progression.
Well, I don't know, because it never, all you get from...
Well, no, because the very start of the game is, here are the 5 things you need to kill. Now go forth. Yeah, the reason you're saying that is because when you, me, and our mutual friend played it, we didn't do that, and so we're like, how do we get bronze?
well, yeah, but that's almost my point. There was no indication from the game, okay, no, you're ready to go and kill Eikthyr. It just tells you gear up because it's a difficult fight. And so we went, well, obviously this is clearly a Viking-themed game. I can see copper ore in the ground. How do I get it?
Yeah.
And the game didn't say... I feel like it would have been really simple for me to hit that with an axe or a hammer or something, and the game go kill Eikthyr. That's how you get this. Now, would that be too tutorialized? Maybe, but...
It's borderline that one, because I hear what you're saying, but equally I sort of think in that game, because it's quite good at telling you, oh, you're not ready for this bit.
Yeah.
So I feel you do run out of options very quickly, and again, it does sort of early on say this is your end goal, so you have to kind of approach it from like, oh, maybe we should at some point kill a boss. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, it shows you the copper, and you could run up a mountain and find silver, and I'm sure the game, wouldn't be like, oh, you're like 4 levels too early here.
It's such a difficult balance
until the wolf comes and kills you 100 times.
I think striking that balance is really, really difficult, and I don't want to devalue how difficult game balance is. But I don't know. I think we've both found recently that, well, it's exactly what you were just saying. There is a gate to a lot of new games, and that gate is finding a content creator to watch, so you can understand what's the early game like. What do I need to do? How do I progress? And that feels so strange.
Yeah, it does.
I think actually here, Kerbal Space Program or Factorio, which are the two that we spoke about at the very start, again are really instructive. It might just be that we have a problem with those two games.
Nah,
it doesn't feel that simple.
It might be. No, because I also feel like Total War is another example. Like the number of questions people ask about it, like how does this work? How do you do that? So on and so forth. I mean, Lionheart has got tutorial videos on how to just do the unit formations, and they're quite integral to playing the game, right?
Well, the Total War Reddit is always, I'm 10 turns in as Franz, Thorgrim, Tyrion, whatever. I keep getting my ass kicked. What do I do?
Yeah,
and people will on the forums will be very, very supportive, but it feels like the game should be able.
With the issue I have with that one is sometimes you just think, well, you've just not thought about it. Like the point of a strategy game is also think a little bit.
Yeah,
right. If you go marching with a crap stack at Karaz Karak or something, you're not going to do well. Like the game can be as easy as you want it to be. Like it's not going to end well.
My favorite one is when the answer, I keep getting my ass kicked. What do I do? And people send a screenshot, and the Reddit answer is, you got Vashnard. Restart your campaign, mate.
Yeah,
which is just an amazing troll from the CA devs. But no,
I think one, well, maybe two games I would throw into the mix are things like Baldur's Gate and Divinity: Original Sin. The last one in particular I played because that tutorial is so long that I thought we'd finished the game, and then it's like, oh, welcome to the actual world. And every step of the way, that game is just brutally difficult. Fucking hell.
I don't think I've ever finished the Divinity: Original Sin 2 tutorial.
It's so long.
Every time I think I've finished it, it's like, oh, did you know you could do this? I was like, well, no, but...
And weirdly, I don't think I learned anything from it. That's the weird thing about it.
Because the game's really intuitive.
To an extent. I mean, yeah, for seasoned sort of RPG players, I guess it is facing. But what it doesn't really tell you, which I think it perhaps should, and this is where tutorialization comes in, is like, it doesn't matter what kind of party you make. Now, that may sound obvious to people who play RPGs, but if you're just like, oh, Divinity: Original Sin, this looks cool, let's give this a go.
Where's my healer?
Yeah, and if it's like you're 5 hours in, having halfway through the tutorial, and the game doesn't tell you like, oh, maybe you should consider a healer, or maybe you should have someone who actually does some damage, that sort of thing, right? It doesn't tell you any of that, and so you can get to quite a long way in, and then just be like, oh, this is just too difficult, and then give up and never play it again.
That's just soft locking, isn't it? Fundamentally.
Yeah, ultimately, yeah.
You can soft lock yourself, and if you can soft lock yourself in the tutorial, your tutorial is badly designed, I think.
Yeah, but equally it could just be that they designed a game a la sort of Frontier, right? Where it's like, if you're too shit, then go play something else. Which I kind of rate, but equally it doesn't help this issue of the fact that games are seemingly just more complicated than they need to be.
There fundamentally feels a difference between we've made our game overcomplicated and obtuse such that you need to learn how to play through forums and YouTube, and our game is a complicated execution challenge that some people will not be able to do.
Yeah,
those two things feel different to me somehow.
I think they are. Yeah. I think ultimately what it comes down to is I'm just really bitter that we don't really have the opportunity to just go over to a mate's house with the spare controller, sit down and just play a game. Like the Switch is more or less the only console that does that anymore, I think.
I mean, that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Yeah, but I feel that I've just rationalized in my head is like, oh, games are too complicated now. Whereas I think what I just want is Mario Kart. Ultimately, right? You just sit down, you play it. It's super intuitive, and you have a great time.
You're not wrong. You never had a guide for Mario Kart, did you? You never needed one.
Well, no, because it's like, it's a race. Figure it out. I'm sure all the what's a good example here. Don't know, but there's always that family member, right, or that one friend who's like, oh, what button do I press to shoot the thing? It's like, you got like 3 buttons to choose from. Like, just click them all and see what happens.
You know that A is go, B is brake, and you've got a weird trigger-shaped one on the bottom. Why don't you use your brain?
Exactly, yeah. But like, that's what I mean, is you're not faced with a full-sized Keeb, as some people would say, and, you have to press every button in turn. You've not got that many to choose from. Like, it's not hard.
I'm still hung up on this problem that some developers seem to have made their games too complicated and then outsourced their tutorials to content creators. Which is not what you were talking about at all, but it's a thought that's been festering in the back of my mind. And I've decided it really annoys me.
Okay.
Like paradox, essentially. I want to enjoy Europa Universalis 4. that's a game that I want to like. I want to enjoy Hearts of Iron 4. I want to enjoy Stellaris. Because the people that I've seen playing those games who are good at them look like they're having great fun, and they are games that appeal to a empire-building bit of my brain that likes seeing borders grow and things like that. Like that all... I want to enjoy those games, but I am a grown man with a child and a full-time job. I don't have the time. And I find the fact that you can't be bothered to put an effective tutorial in your game that will teach me how to play the game sufficiently that I will actually enjoy playing the game. So I have to spend 25 feckin' hours watching Quill 18 play or whatever. Whom I enjoy
just thinking
watching.
about Quill 18, yeah.
I really like watching him play video games like that. He's a very, very good content creator. He's not the best tutorial maker in the world for Paradox games, but that's by the by. The other problem, specifically with Paradox games, is that the tutorials go out of date almost instantly because the games change so much. You have to relearn how to play the game every few months.
Yeah, because they release a whole new mechanic that just changes everything fundamentally.
Yeah.
And Quill 18 is an interesting example because he for me is one. So Europa Universalis, right? I've watched him play that a lot. I still wouldn't be able to tell you what the game is, how it works, how to play it. And I think because Quill 18 exists and he exists in it, as someone who plays that game, I'm like, okay, I don't need to play it then. I can just watch him do it.
No, that's fair.
It's like the reverse of the whole content creators are good for sales. This is like, because there is a content creator, I no longer need to buy this game.
He's actively preventing you from buying the game. That's excellent. I really like that.
I also need to correct myself for having said that Frontier make
FromSoft.
It's definitely From Software, yes.
Yeah, I was really confused because
the minute I said it, it's like, that doesn't sound right at all.
FromSoft make Dark Souls and Larian make Divinity, so I didn't know what the fuck you were on about.
Yeah. So yeah, before you give me tinfoil for that, I did catch my mistake.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, so I feel we've rambled on for about an hour now, and I don't know if we've actually answered. So, do you think that there is an overcomplexity in the subsequent tutorialization of modern video games then?
I think actually the problem is that the overcomplexity and the tutorialization don't overlap.
Yeah. Well, I think there's overcomplexity by design. So
Ghost of Tsushima.
No, because I think that's faux complexity. I think a Rainbow Six Siege over complexity, right? Where there's a hidden layer of complexity almost that you can unlock because you're very good at it and you've spent a lot of hours in it. That doesn't require tutorialization.
I don't think that's over complexity though. I think that's the game.
Yeah, but I think the over complexity of maybe over complexity is wrong, but like the ridiculously steep learning curve of Factorio. Right?
Yeah, I think
if you have not played tutorials, you will not enjoy the game.
I mean, this might just be an argument for playing the Factorio tutorials, mate.
Yeah, quite. But it's that sort of I just come back to you don't need a tutorial for Mario Kart. No one needed to give you a tutorial to play Monopoly. Like, it's not hard, but it's really fun. So does it add fun? And given how many people seem to be enslaved with Factorio, maybe the answer to this is yes. But does it actually add fun to have a game that's so complex, such a steep learning curve, or is it unnecessary?
I think that's a really good sort of 11th hour question. What's your complexity buying you fundamentally?
Yeah,
so complexity is if we accept that complexity is the mechanism by which we buy game depth, then arguably complex games are deeper. I'm not sure how true that is. Doesn't feel.
I think it's just a genre thing here, isn't it? Like, because there's no comparing. Like, the complexity of a Ghost of Tsushima hopefully comes from the story.
Exactly.
Whereas the complexity of a Factorio or a Paradox game comes from the mechanics and being able to get good at the mechanics.
It's can the tutorial teach you to deal with the complexity? And if the answer is, can you be taught to deal with the complexity? And if the answer is yes, I'm not sure how useful your complexity is.
Yeah.
Like, is your complexity... I'm really struggling to get this right. Is your complexity something that you can read how to solve?
Yeah.
So Factorio, for an example. Factorio is fundamentally a game that you could play entirely on a spreadsheet and just read what the answers are. And I don't know that that's necessarily good.
I think maybe one way of looking at it is, I mean, you were looking at PlayStation Plus tiers, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's the top tier that gives you game trials.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the length of game trials, but ultimately, say, even if it's 24 hours of having downloaded a game, it's something along those lines. We're busy people nowadays. I think anyone over a certain age is inherently busier than we were as children. So I guess I'm not speaking to children playing video games because they've got all the time in the world. But as an adult, I think you kind of have to make up your mind about whether or not you like a game in a matter of very few hours, right?
Well, the Steam refund is 2 hours.
Yeah. And I think if you play 2 hours of a Ghost of Tsushima, right, you're drawn in by the character of it, the story of it.
Yeah.
And games like that put in a big effort to make the first half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours really quite engaging, I think.
Absolutely.
They're trying to make a good game anyway. So I guess the other way of looking at this issue then is if you play a Factorio for 2 hours, you still probably don't have any idea what it's about. And you might well be within your rights to say, you know what, this is not for me because I don't understand what it's about.
Or you've not got out of the tutorial yet.
That's what I mean, yeah, because I don't think you would be. And so
certainly not on your first time, no.
Yeah. And so again, without content creators in that case, where oh yes, there is, the sun over the horizon.
Yeah.
You might just say, no, it's not worth my money.
I think that's a flaw of game design. I really do. If I play a game for 2 hours and it's not hooked me with its core mechanic, I'm not going to play it. I'm just not. I don't have time.
Yeah.
And you can say what you like about, who games are targeted at. We're the people with the money. like it's not kids. The people that the ones that have got all the time. The most money in video games is paid by people our age.
Yes,
you're 25 to 40. And we're the busy ones, realistically. So you've got to be making games that hook us quicker than that, I think.
I think that's right. So make your games less complex. Get rid of the need for tutorials.
Make your games deep. Don't just make them complex for its own sake.
Oh, that's actually quite profound. Well done.
I know.
That's so unusual for you.
I know. I'm not used to it. I'm trying to wrap this episode up. We've been going for a long time.
We have been going for a long time, but I think we've answered our question then. Yeah, for once.
Yeah,
and I think we can revisit this sort of idea when I'm sure we will talk about the video game industry again at some point.
We're always on about that. I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a question out to the listeners because we've not had homework for a few weeks. What is the most egregious example of this unnecessary complexity or complexity for complexity's sake that you've seen? So is it Factorio? Are we missing something about Factorio? Why do I not think that this is a problem that exists in Satisfactory in the same way that I do it exists in Factorio? So I'm really interested to hear what people have to say on this topic, I think.
That's an excellent question. Maybe one day someone will actually do that homework you set.
No one's done it yet, as far as I can tell.
No.
There's a lot of F's coming.
Indeed. Well, I think we've reached the conclusion of this one then.
have we said all that we have to say?
I think we've said all that we need to say.
I've always got more to say. In which case, all that remains, I think, is to say thank you for listening to this episode of Expertise at Overrated. And again, Thank you for listening to all of the previous episodes.
Yeah.
If you have done, episode 50 is a milestone. I don't think either. We've joked before, but I don't think either of us expected to reach.
No, really not.
50,
Like, seriously,
50 episodes and 2,500 downloads. So
edit a nice little sound thing into here.
I don't know what that nice sound thing will be, but sure. In relation to this episode, no doubt we've said some things that were either objectively wrong or downright offensive. As ever, feel free to let us know, rate the podcast and leave us a comment, or drop us an email at expertiseisoverrated@gmail.com, tweet us at @zeroexpertise, check out our website, expertiseisoverrated.podbean.com, or come join us on our Discord server.
If you're lucky, we might just argue with you in one of our upcoming episodes, and if you're really lucky, we might call you an idiot. Come back next time for some more absolute nonsense.